What's up, everyone? I got Billy Jackson here with me. How are you doing, Billy?
Yo, Noam, doing good. Good to be here, man.
Good to see you again. It's been a few weeks since our last video. How did you do so far in the past few weeks with the optimizer?
The optimizer's done pretty well. If you mean the performance of the optimizer, yeah, it's done pretty well. I'm pretty happy with it.
Okay,
I I
okay,
actually,
nice.
I got some brief records here. Yeah, I won. It would have won a rare tier two last week. Um, the game week before it was actually one of the two game weeks of all time that it wouldn't have won any rewards. But last
Okay,
week, yeah,
it happens.
yeah, it would have come in fifth place in the rare contender contest,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
I saw that on your Twitter. That's pretty sick, man. It's pretty sick.
Yeah.
The top five is something else, you know?
And that was
Um,
with minimum XP boost. If it had just a little bit of XP boost, it would have
all
finished
right, right,
top three and got a rare
right,
tier one. So pretty
right.
cool.
We should make a whole separate video about XP.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So today, I think we gathered here today to talk about the MVP discussion,
I
which
think
is
this is one of the most like underappreciated aspects of So Rare that a lot of new beginning managers don't quite realize how important the MVP is.
it is. It's a fascinating topic to talk about. I've been obsessed since I started playing to just kind of figure out, who's the best player to be as your MVP. Like if he's injured, who's the second best, and obviously it varies week to week, right? My strategy in week 5 or week 6, give or take, I just brought a Luca, made a trade with some ETH and some rares to get a Luca, and just been playing him ever since, every single week. And it worked out pretty good. I'll show it in the data pretty soon. We're gonna show some data of every single MVP who won every single week in a few minutes, and it worked pretty good for me. But for example, in the last several weeks, he wasn't playing, so I was debating if I should buy a new one, like a backup MVP, or just play with Ant as my MVP because he's like my second best player. So it's a very interesting topic. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, it's interesting. If you bought Luca back in week five, I mean, he has risen in price since then, and he has also possibly single-handedly won you a whole bunch of rewards.
Exactly.
So that was a great investment back then. I also bought a Luca limited, probably back around, I don't know, somewhere between week 6 through 10 or so. And man, that's probably the best card that I've bought in all of So Rare.
Yeah. So if we're talking about like was profitable, then I can tell you I remember exact numbers. When I got him, the floor was 350 in dollars, not in ETH, obviously. Since then, I saw him go slightly above 500 in several weeks. And now he's back for 350. Maybe it was because he just missed a few weeks. I don't know. But he's not worth more, but he kept his value. He's worth right now exactly the same as when I bought him. And he
Uh-huh.
helped me land multiple rewards just by playing limited champion. I won like at least like 3 rare rewards in limited champion, not even in
Yeah.
rare competitions because of Luca. Yeah.
Yep.
So it was definitely a profitable purchase for me.
Yeah. That probably paid itself off right there.
Yeah, yeah. And so what we're gonna do today is I took a little time because me and Billy, we both like data. I'm sorry, Billy like it as a profession, just not just as data of NBA, like of an NBA nerd. For me, it's just a side hobby. So I kind of went over week by week. Took me a little while. We are now in week 33, so I went over the entire first 32 weeks, and I put into a sheet, which I'm going to show in a second, each week which one was the top scorer, what was his score, how many times he was number one, and then I did the same for the top 5 and top 10. So for example, I can tell you guys that Luca won as the top scorer like 4 times out of 32 weeks. He was
Shocking.
about 20 times in the top 10, and he was about 14 or 15 times in the top 5. This I remember from the top of my head. So This is just really interesting data to take notes. It's important to know. And for me, one of my motivation to do it is because I want to start competing in Rare Champion. Me and Billy have been discussing about it for a while, and it's been a really hard decision who I should buy if we're also considering the price. So that's why I did this. So I'm gonna share my screen, and I'm gonna show the numbers. Just a sec. Okay. So um, here we can see the list of the first 32 weeks, right? Let me, here we go. So here we can see the list of the first 32 weeks by order, by rankings. So we can see that Luka and Jokic both won 4 times.
So
We can
these are
see
the
that
people, these are the players that have finished number one in scoring for that game week, right, Nolan?
exactly, exactly. So what you see here is the people who finished number one. And when you see score one, score two, it's how many SORARE points they scored. So for example, the first time Luka was an MVP, he scored 78. The second time he was the top scorer, he scored 84, etc. He had 105 in his third time and 93 in his fourth time. So we can also see he had the highest ceiling, which is Luka had 105, Donovan Mitchell had 100 at one point, Joel Embiid had 100 at one point, and like we can see that Jokic won 4 times, but his highest score was 87, which is interesting.
So he didn't like single-hand. I mean, 87 is really high. That's enough to pretty much like single-handedly win you that champion contest.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, if you have the right pieces around him, then you should be
Right.
good to
Yeah.
go. What do you think when you see those numbers?
I think this is really cool. I really like the other sheets that you're going to show us even better because I don't think you necessarily need the number one score in order to finish really high. And it's funny, I was going through the data in preparation for this talk, and one very interesting one stuck out to me. And if you look at that Damian Lillard 90-point game,
Hmm.
right?
Here we
He
go.
was the number one scorer that week, big time score, right? It
Right.
turns out in limited champion, a lot of the top 10 finishers didn't even have Damian Lillard that week. They were
Wow.
like two of the top 10 finishers. Number one, number two, number three, number four, number five. The top five finishers in limited champion that week all did not have Damian Lillard.
Really?
Isn't
That's
that wild?
interesting.
They all had LeBron, who scored like 87 points that same
Oh,
game week
okay,
or
okay,
something
okay.
like that. So that's why I don't think finishing top number one is really the most important thing. I love the next sheet that you put together, the top five. How many times everybody finished top five? Because I think if you're in the top five, I think you really got a good shot at kind of finishing high up in that champion contest.
Yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense what you're saying. I just think it's just fascinating to see the numbers. It's cool to
Oh yeah.
see like that, like for me, when I'm trying to make decisions, it's cool to see that like Jokic and Doncic could gave me 4 times the top, like the top score. While if I think about LeBron, which is a coveted player and name and all that, was just once, or even Tatum, you know. And it's not just that he was only once. It's take a look at his score when he was number one. So, which leads me to what you said that we got to look at the top five. So, I don't push back on it. I'm just gonna say that I think you should integrate everything. Like, you should take a look at the top five, which is maybe slightly more important, but context matters. So, if I know Tatum was like multiple times in the number five, but at the same time, he his ceiling is around 67 or 70 solar points. Um, when we have other guys like Embiid or Jokic or Luka that could give like 100 points or 90 points, then I just think it's important to know. That's all when we try to make decisions who we want to play as our MVP.
Oh yeah, that's the beautiful thing about this sheet is that you get a really good sense of a player's ceiling. You know, like I personally would rather have Jason Tatum as my MVP than Donovan Mitchell, but it is worth knowing that Donovan Mitchell definitely has a very clearly higher ceiling, which this data demonstrates.
Yeah, I mean, also, and it's also just temporarily, right? I mean, Jason Tatum could put up 95 points next week, and then like it
Yep,
changes,
that's
right?
true.
But
That's true.
this is the numbers as of now, as of 32 weeks. So we see um, Doncic and Jokic alone are 8 times together out of those 32, which is exactly 25%.
Wow.
25% out of weeks so far, Jokic and Doncic were the number one scorers. And it's interesting to know like Mitchell and Steph had 3 times. I see multiple guys like Embiid, Lillard, Davis, Giannis, and even Vooch, which is surprising,
Yeah.
was the number one. And there's like an honorable mention for Tatum, Levine. I was surprised by Levine. So we got
Yeah.
Tatum, Levine, LeBron, Kyrie, Siakam, Ja, Paul George, and obviously the most surprising one is Zubats.
Wow, Zubats.
Yeah. So with that in mind, let's show the next sheet, the top five, which is just as interesting, or even maybe a little more. Hold on, did I miss anyone? No, DeRozan. Okay,
And
here we
there's
go.
my boy Tatum.
Right, right. Tatum is just like just behind this Giannis and Luca.
Yeah, and Giannis wasn't too high up there. I think he had two in the top number one or something like that. And now that demonstrates why he's a really valuable MVP as well.
Yeah, so for me, I have Doncic in my limited as my MVP, and in my rare, I don't want to have the same MVP in both because the way I see it is like let's say I have for example Doncic and Jokic, right? So if Doncic has a week when he's number one, so I'm happy because like my champion limited is like in a really good spot. And at the same time, if I play Jokic in my rare, so like if Doncic is having like not the best week and Jokic is having a great week and is number one, so that's even better for me because it's the competition. So what I'm trying to do is play one of the best ones in limited, one of the best ones in rares, and just try to hit one of them as much as I can.
Yep, that's my strategy as well. I've got Luca for my limited MVP, and right now for my rare MVP, I got two guys. I've got Anthony Davis, who I really like when he's healthy, and Jason Tatum is like my backup or alternate MVP.
Yeah, Anthony Davis is really interesting. I'm trying to debate right now between Giannis, Tatum, Jokic, and Embiid, which also kind of resonate with what you said because after Luka, which I got in my limited, uh, they're the they're after him in the top five. Also, I'll just make a caveat because context matters, right? And we see Anthony Davis has finished 5 times in the top five, but I didn't check the exact numbers. But if I remember, like give or take correctly, so I think Anthony Davis missed like 50% out of the games so far, give or take.
Probably, yeah,
Yeah. So context
probably
matters.
like
So
10 game. He probably missed more than 10 game weeks, I bet. So yeah, his percent of finishing in the top five is probably really high.
yeah, exactly. So maybe it could have been like 10 or 11 times in the top five if he wasn't injured. So it's important to note that. But obviously, he's not the only one who got injured. But this is still really interesting to see Luca so dominate, like 14 weeks out of 32. I guess it's around 40%, give or take, which is crazy to think that he's finishing like give or take 40% of every of like the weeks in the top five. It's pretty, it's a pretty good stock to have as your MVP.
Yeah, yeah.
Who sticks out to you here that you think is interesting?
Honestly, yeah, I think we all expected Luca to be up at the top.
Mhm.
I have, to my subscribers, I give them kind of like a guide on who I think to buy at MVP, and I consider like the gold tier to be Luca, Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, Anthony Davis, and I'm missing somebody. Maybe I said them all. And Tatum. So I think of them as all kind of being, a lot parts equal. I think this really speaks to how good of a value Giannis has been this season. 11 times in the top five, that's really strong, especially, it's only three fewer times than Luca. And, he comes at, a pretty decent discount to Luca. So
Right.
he jumps out. And also Donovan Mitchell being really at the top of there. That surprises me a little as well.
It did. I feel the same. I didn't expect to see Mitchell just like slightly under Jokic and Embiid, you know? I didn't
Yeah,
know it was that dominate.
right.
And at the bottom, I think the most interesting person for me is Jonas Valanciunas because
Hmm.
I'll tell you why. There was a few times, you know, the last 10 games average, it changes from week to week. I
Yep.
definitely remember sometimes that Jonas cap was around 20, like 20, 21,
Yeah.
23. So to see a guy that I saw in multiple weeks in like, you know, in the 20 range or mid 20s, being in the top five two times, I think that's, I don't know, that's the most interesting thing to me that sticks here.
Yeah. And one more, Şengün finishing there twice in the top five. He's a young guy.
Mhm.
I mean, if he's already finishing twice in the top five this year, when he hasn't been getting very good minutes in Houston too, he hasn't been getting consistent, really, 30 plus minutes a game. Uh, what are those numbers gonna look like for him next season and the season after as he continues to develop and get better? That's really intriguing to me too.
Yeah, I agree. He's an interesting guy. And it's going to be interesting to see how many more times he can do it this season. So
Yep.
let's jump into also the top 10, which there's a few interesting stats that we can see here as well.
All right. I
So
like
we,
this. It really kind of shows actually, I told you about my gold tier MVPs. Luka, Tatum, Giannis, Jokic, Embiid. Those are five of my guys. Anthony Davis had some injury concerns, but those are five of the top six guys with LeBron in there as well. So yeah, those are all. You got SGA up there as well, who is one of my silver tier MVP guys. So
Mhm.
yeah, as you go kind of a little bit more into top 10, you kind of get to see a little bit more representation from the players you'd expect to see in there.
Yeah, and as you can see, if players were under three times, I I didn't put them in the list here. I have it
Hmm.
for myself. I know who was there once or twice, but I kind of wanted to show like people who stick out more because like um I can show it in Twitter who finished one time or two times in the top 10. But for me, if you got to finish at least three times out of 30 weeks in the top 10, so I'll like take you seriously, you know what I mean?
Yep, yep. Surprised TJ McConnell's not on this list.
No, CJ McCollum?
TJ McConnell from
Okay, okay.
Indiana.
Okay. Um, I can let's make a short quiz. We only have about 5 minutes left, but let's make a short quiz.
All right.
Tell me who is like the top or three players from the top of your mind that got to the top 10 that you were, I don't know, that you try to guess who is the top two or three players that got there, that it's really, really hard. Just like you asked with TJ McConnell. I got two players who stick way, way more than everyone you can think about. Like,
Wait, are you talking about in this list right here?
I'm saying, no, they both got to the top 10 once. And
Oh, oh, oh,
let me
oh.
rephrase the question.
Really surprising.
Yeah, the question is
Uh,
who is the two players that got to the top 10 just once, but they're the most surprising players to be there?
TJ McConnell would have been my guess for one of them, but he might have
So,
made it twice.
so if McConnell is not there, maybe he
Okay.
made it once or twice, but
I think he made it twice.
it could be. I can check that later. But
Ah,
the players I'm talking about made it once, and they're more surprising than McConnell.
more surprising than McConnell. Cam Thomas.
Well, I would put him as number three. He got there last week.
Okay. Okay. All right. All right.
Okay,
Um,
I'll give you a hint.
sure.
One of them is known for his defense, and he used to play for the Wolves, but now he plays for a different team.
Pat Beverly?
No,
Uh, oh boy.
he's a wing.
McDaniels? Torian
No,
Prince?
no, no. Okay,
Oh,
I'll just
geez.
tell you.
Yeah,
Okay,
let me know.
so the top two players that I'm most surprised that made it into the top 10 are Josh Okogie.
Josh Okogie. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
he made it with the Suns once, and Kevon Looney.
and Kevon Looney.
Yeah,
Wow. All
yeah.
right.
So
Yeah, I
yeah,
wouldn't
we
expect that.
can see a lot of surprises there. Um, Billy, we just have a few more minutes, so let's pivot to kind of your optimizer to keep the MVP discussion and see. Now we're at week 32. So today's Sunday, so we still don't know. We still don't know. Like tomorrow, it's gonna update, but as of now, as of Sunday, who would you say is the top few guys projected to be the MVPs in week 33?
Yeah, so in my data, I've got, and sometimes, top five doesn't always make a difference, as you know, because sometimes the number six guy is really close to number five. So usually it's good to look off for where there's a drop off, right? So I would say there's like a clear top two. So Luca is number one, and Anthony Davis is not very far behind him at number two. So those are the
Interesting.
guys that my optimizer likes the most for MVP this upcoming game week. Both guys play twice. And then after that, you've got a lot of the usual suspects. You've got Joel Embiid, Jokic coming in at 3 and 4. And then LeBron and Damian Lillard coming in at 5 and 6. They're kind of right in that mix.
Okay, interesting. Davis was pretty interesting because his cap is way lower than Luca, and they're not too far away, so that's interesting.
That's true. I might end up playing him in my contender lineups again, like I have the last couple weeks instead of my champion MVP.
Okay, okay, that's interesting. Interesting. I'll definitely consider it. Yeah, man, I'm just still kind of picking your brain about who I should buy as my next rare champion.
Who was my last advice? Did I say Giannis was the guy? Is that who I said, or did I say
We
Jokic?
let's if for anyone who's watching, let's feel free to comment. My dilemma is between Embiid because his floor is around $900, Tatum, which is also around 800 or 900 bucks, and uh, and Giannis, which is 1400, and Jokic is 1600. So I'll leave that as an open question. If you also consider the money in it, it's a pretty hard decision right now. Right now, I tend to think about Giannis, uh,
Okay.
but we'll see. We'll see.
I think you can't go wrong either way. Giannis and Jokic. I think those are the two guys.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Billy. It was pretty interesting to talk some MVP strategy.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. I hope your viewers get a lot out of those charts, help that inform their MVP choices because having an MVP is the most important thing. You got to have one that way you can compete in both the contender and champion lineups and get a little overlap of your players in there.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. So we're gonna do this again sometime soon. And yeah, let us know in the comments who you got as your MVP. So it's been fun, man. Thanks.
No doubt. Peace.
All right. Peace, everyone. Till the next one.